The issue with Classic Plus is that there isn't just a limited amount of unfinished content, there is an excessive amount of unfinished content. I'm not even talking about classes, I'm not even talking about specs, class balance, I'm not even talking about battlegrounds and PvP or 1v1 arenas. I'm not even talking about professions which are woefully underfinished, or raid items and design philosophy behind items. So much of vanilla WoW is empty and unfinished because the devs did not have enough time. But in context of Classic Plus, I want to talk about just one thing. And that one singular thing is the unfinished zones and the unfinished potential of a lot of locations. So, we are going to start with Kalimdor. Because, Eastern Kingdom has a lot more unfinished content because Kalimdor itself is woefully unfinished. So for Kalimdor, there's a lot of shit they can just make up or read from the notes Metzen wrote. But Eastern Kingdoms is a zone with way more unfinished content that we'll cover in a little bit. So right here, we have Northern Winter Spring. Many private servers have made zones around this. You have in Turtle WoW or Ascension or a bunch of other private servers, they've made a big zone north of Winter Spring, and in some private servers connecting down to Ajara. This is likely going to happen in Classic Plus. I'm not sure when it's going to happen. I'm not sure if it's going to be at launch. I don't know if it's even going to be in the first couple phases, but the Northern Winter Spring zone is definitely coming, right? We'll discuss that in more detail in a future video on what that could look like for C+. But I want to talk about Mount Hyjal because Mount Hyjal has so much already written, unfinished and existing lore. From Illidan's Barrow-Den prison to the corruption of Archimonde storyline, well, in this context, stopping the resurrection of Archimonde so he can't destroy Azeroth by summoning Sargeras, yada yada yada. And that was a whole plot point written back before Vanilla where Archimonde was trying to be resurrected by a bunch of demons, a whole bunch of storytelling and lore there. But we'll cover that. I already made a full video about that. So you can go check my channel. There's a Hyjal video. Really good video too. I went quite in depth on that. Then you have Stone Talon Expanded, and Stone Talon was always meant to be a bit bigger than it is in, Vanilla WoW or the original storyline. Stone Talon should be about that big. It should be a much bigger zone, or split into two zones with Stone Talon Exterior and then Stone Talon Interior, the bigger area, more chock full of dungeons, zones, quest lines. Maybe even a raid or maybe a dungeon, right? It depends on the devs, how much time they have. But Stone Talon itself is woefully underutilized based on its importance back in Warcraft 3 alone. And if you haven't played Warcraft 3 yet, why the fuck are you watching a YouTube video? You should be playing Warcraft 3. It's that fucking goated. Now, we're gonna go a little south. And that is Kultiran Remnants and Theramore, as in Theramore being expanded. As it is right now, the Kultiran Remnants and Theramore are likely going to be expanded in C+, but the question is more of a when and how, not if. Theramore was always meant to be more important in Vanilla's context. There was meant to be capitals for both factions on either side, and then they just changed Theramore's importance to being less important than it should have been. So I truly do want to see the Theramore expansion, the Kultiran Remnants, that there be more meaning, more value, more information on the entire original Jaina and the original Kultiran / Theramore storyline and arc. Now, going back here, because we need to discuss the zones themselves or the phases themselves and when Hyjal's coming. Hyjal, in my opinion, is one of the first 4 new phases. It's one of the biggest, the most iconic storytelling line and plot beats of Vanilla WoW. The mystery of Hyjal, before it got turned into a shitty raid in TBC. And I don't want to hear anybody in the comments or in my chat come at me going, oh my god, I really liked the Battle for Mount Hyjal. The Battle for Mount Hyjal is fun once. And only fucking once. I have not once in my entire life heard anyone say that aside from lore purposes and getting to experience it from a perspective of being there, that they've enjoyed the Battle of Mount Hyjal as a raid. It is honestly bottom 5 raids of all time. Bottom 5 raids. And there's a lot of shit raids in WoW. And I would put the Battle of Mount Hyjal at bottom 5. But in the first 4 new phases, right? Will Hyjal be the opening phase? Will they launch Hyjal's opening phase? Or will it come later on? And that's what I'm curious to find out. So once again, guys, I gotta take this. And in my opinion, I would say that Hyjal has enough importance to be the opening launch, the premier feature of C+, right? I feel like it could genuinely be that zone, that experience that just makes everybody go, holy fuck, once they show it on the trailer. But I could also see them showing it in the trailer with a teasing soon and showing like some pit lord or something being like, I will resurrect Lord Archimonde and I will destroy this world in the name of Sargeras. There's so many ways they could do this that I feel like Hyjal is such a chock full of content zone, storytelling, raids, dungeons, and just like even like a teaser into Illidan and so many other things, that it's going to be genuinely fucking peak. It'll either be the first, but I could see it being the last of the new phases, as they tease like Gilneas or Grimbatol, other things like that. So now that we've covered Hyjal, we're gonna move on down. And that takes us to Ahn'Qiraj Expanded, Uldum, and the Caverns of Time. Now, I'm gonna cover Tel'Abim in a bit, but between these 4 zones, and we're gonna talk about just the first 3 that I mentioned initially, Ahn'Qiraj Expanded. The original Ahn'Qiraj was a ginormous zone with a battleground and other features back there, and it could have potentially been so much more, but the devs just didn't have time, and they didn't particularly care because Ahn'Qiraj wasn't even meant to be at launch anyways. It was always meant to be a further on down the line. They teased Ahn'Qiraj, they built up to Ahn'Qiraj, they went into detail on Ahn'Qiraj, but it was never meant to be there at launch regardless. So with Ahn'Qiraj, I don't know the exact lore beats and storytelling behind it. All I know is that Ahn'Qiraj could be expanded upon based on the OG notes of Metzen or whatever's remaining, the other storytellers and writers at Blizzard. I don't know what it's going to look like. In the context of Ahn'Qiraj Expanded, we're all guessing. There is no concrete conclusion of what is meant to be there. Whether it's a BG, a brand new zone, the raid itself turned into an open world explorable zone, maybe a PvP only zone. There could be so many things they could do with it, and I genuinely don't know. I'd be excited for any of it. But Classic plus Uldum, that's something that I truly want to discuss, because Classic plus Uldum was meant to be a raid. A very, very intriguing deep dive into a Titan facility. Now, was there meant to be a zone for Uldum initially? I don't think there was. I think it was genuinely a Titan facility, and becoming a zone was a Cataclysm type thing. But if they make it a zone, I feel like there's so much they could do that isn't just a copy of the Cataclysm version of Uldum, and is more of an expansion upon the original intentions of the Titan-esque design and philosophy. Like, the Tol'Vir are cool, but I didn't quite enjoy Cataclysm Uldum. I think Cataclysm Uldum was rather shitty in my personal opinion, but I'm just not the biggest fan of Uldum in general. And at the end of the day, with Uldum itself, there's so much they could do that it genuinely doesn't really matter what direction they take it, that any direction itself is better than no fucking direction, which is how it feels to be a Classic WoW player right now. I'm the biggest fucking Blizzard shill, let's be honest. I've been shilling Classic Plus for so fucking long. And at the end of the day, there genuinely is only one direction that matters, and that's going fucking forward. So no matter what they pick for Uldum, I think it's gonna be fun. I think it's gonna be good. But it's genuinely up in the air of what that looks like. The Uldum raid, I believe, is 100% a guarantee. The Uldum zone, or the Uldum dungeon, or the Uldum other things are in the air. But I 10,000 billion% believe that Uldum as a raid is coming. And I think that'll be like the second or third phase, because unless Uldum comes with a zone, and even if it does, I feel like it's not really an opening type zone. I feel like Uldum as a zone is more of a, or a raid is more of a down the line type situation. So I don't believe Uldum is the opening phase. I believe it's in the first 4 new phases, but not in the slightest do I think it'll be the first or even the second. I see it more as being the 3rd or the 4th of the new raids coming, or the zones, or the dungeons, or the new phases. The last of the first 4 phases, in my personal opinion. Which takes me to Caverns of Time, which I believe 10 toes down, zero hesitation, is 1 billion% a launch feature. Now, I truly believe we are getting a Caverns of Time zone. Not the Caverns of Time itself being a zone, but the Caverns of Time itself having a portal that takes you to a zone with a raid. And what do I mean by that? I truly believe that once we enter Classic Plus, the Caverns of Time will be there. It'll be open. There'll be a quest line, yada yada yada. You'll go in there, and there'll, you know, for example, be the original Black Morass, which is Cancer, and then not counting Black Morass, there'll be another portal which takes us to a new alternate timeline of past time zone. Now, whether that past timeline zone is, you know, the Battle of the Shifting Sands, not the one that we had in Warcraft, in WoW and Vanilla, but the one from 10,000 years ago. Well, not 10,000 years ago, but anyway, you guys get what I'm saying. Or maybe it'll be Stone Town in the past. Or maybe it'll take us to the Eastern Kingdoms in the past, to the founding of Stormwind, or the founding of Stromgarde, or the Troll Wars, or the Knoll Wars, or the rise and fall of the Gurubashi, or the Gurubashi versus the Trolls, or the Zandalari sieging down and destroying the Cthulhu's forces and crushing them. There are so many storylines and beats with Caverns of Time as far as the zone could go that this is anything works. I believe it's a phase 1 launch experience. I think we're getting a new dungeon, maybe even, you know, 2 or 3 new dungeons from just the Caverns of Time, and I believe it's going to be absolutely fucking peak. But I personally have zero fucking clue what it could be, because it could be anything. This isn't like a, oh my god, Eben, just tell us what you think. I genuinely have no fucking clue. You could go anywhere. We could literally get an alternate timeline or a past timeline Lordaeron. They could literally rework the Plague Lands all here as a past version, back when Stratholme was restored, back when the Plague Lands weren't the Plague Lands, back when Lordaeron was beautiful, Lordaeron was peak. But regardless, whether Caverns of Time is going to have a zone at launch or not, I could just be like hoping and coping out of my fucking mind. I'm excited for Caverns of Time to the fullest extent. I am genuinely so fucking hyped and excited about it. I really want to explore the world in immense detail, and just, I can't wait to see the past. Because man, the future storytelling is fucking ass. This timeline cannot get any worse, guys. I'm gonna keep it real with you guys. And then the final thing of Kalimdor is Tel'Abim. And Tel'Abim is honestly Tel'Abim. It's a continuation of the pirate storylines, of the South Seas, of Daenerys. There's a lot they can do there. There's a lot that can be well done. There's a lot that's interesting about it. But in regards to Tel'Abim, like I genuinely can't sit here and tell you guys, oh, they're gonna add this, or they're gonna add this, or they're gonna add this. It could genuinely be whatever the fuck they want, because Tel'Abim is still modern fucking retail. And the story beats of Tel'Abim that we've had even from vanilla are just fucking random bullshit notes go. So genuinely, I don't know what Tel'Abim will look like. Whether it's a pirate raid, a zone, a neutral faction, or like a blood sail Buccaneers type faction that starts off like, you know, a negative, and then you have to build it up to exalted, which makes you hostile with many other factions that they add in the game. I don't exactly know what Tel'Abim will look like. Your guess, any viewer's guess, is as good as anyone else's guess. Literally, there is no good prediction for this, because there is nothing good written by Blizzard for this yet. It's literally, you know, make what you want and hope it's good type situation. And this is not all gonna be phase 1. This is all just potential stuff in the first 4 phases. Now, over the course of 5 or 10 years of Classic Plus, I see pretty much most, if not all of this being added to the game. I see a lot of this being added to the game, like a genuine, huge amount of this being added to the game. But I don't believe that in the first 4 phases we're gonna get everything. I think the first 4 phases are definitely Hyjal, Uldum / Ahn'Qiraj / Caverns of Time. And then you go over to the other side of the continent, and you have, of course, Grimbatol, the Highlands, that's 3, and then Gilneas is 4. I believe those 4 are the main 4 new zones, new phases. In what order is unknown. But we are now going to cover the Eastern Kingdoms, because that's where we've headed on right now. And before I do go on, Kadruna, I do believe we are getting expanded Aldrathalas, and, you know, the Diamol and the ancient elves and their magic, the highborn. There's going to be a lot of storytelling and lore there, but it just wasn't something I covered in this video because there's not enough arrows. My screen is quite literally so packed full that there's a few things I actually haven't touched on yet. I haven't expanded upon Decilis or Foralis or the Naga. I haven't expanded upon Thousand Needles, Unguro Crater. I haven't expanded upon Mulgore, Thunderbluff, the Tauren, and their issues with each other and their own personal lore. And so just based off of that, there's just too much to really cover for me to really just go in there and say this bad, this good. And this is just what I have available space-wise. I'll go more in depth on like a 2, 3, 4 hour video down the line. It's just not something I'm going to like do right now. We're just going to cover all the major plot points and major plot beats that are coming to Classic Plus. And yeah, if they do only 2 arrows per phase, that is 10-15 phases. Assume a phase is 3 to 4 months. So you have the big phase and the mini phase in between. That's like 5-6 years of content. Assume they do 1 arrow per phase. That's like 10 years of content. And there's so many other arrows that I haven't even added yet that it's like, it's an insane amount of content they can add. Anyways, we're going here to Gilneas. Like I said earlier, I believe of the 4 major new phases, Gilneas is one of the 4 ones that is coming first. Gilneas has been hyped so much as far as a new race, the Worgen or the Goblins being added into the game. I do believe that it's going to be genuinely peak and genuinely top tier quality. So I don't know if it's going to be first. I feel like Gilneas being first is a bit conspiracy theory. I don't believe it's the first raid getting added to the game or the first new zone. It's between the first 4, they could literally go anywhere. They could open up with Hyjal, Grimbatol, Gilneas, and then Caverns of Time / Uldum. Or they could do Uldum, Caverns of Time, Hyjal, Gilneas, Grimbatol. Or they could do Grimbatol, you know, Gilneas, Caverns of Time / Uldum, and then they could do Hyjal. Like it doesn't really matter how they do it. Those 4 are the first 4 major phases because they're what everybody is waiting for. Now keep in mind that I said major phases. They could literally add the Ghostlands in between 2 phases. They could literally add Avalon / Scarlet Enclave in between those phases. They could do Gnomeregan Restored. They could do Zuldar and Tolbrad and Crestfall. They could literally add Stone Talon Expanded. Any of these things could happen in between each other. But the first 4 major new raid tiers, because keep in mind, I do believe it's going to go like Molten Core, new raid tier, Blackwing Lair, mini raid tier in between like Karazhan Crypts, Karazhan Lower Tower, without like adding a major new zone for that phase. Then after that, it'll be like Grimbatol. You know, you get Grimbatol Depths, and you get the new zone with the Twilight, with the Highlands, not the Twilight Highlands yet, and you get more and more stuff spread across 2, 3, 4, 5 years. When I say first 4 major phase, I don't mean like back to back in 18 months we get to go through all 4 of the dream scenarios. I believe it's going to be slow with a lot of things in between, but I think those 4 are going to be the major selling points on the roadmap, etc., that they're going to tease everybody towards. So going on to the islands right here. This is of course, you know, the Broken Shore. You know, it's, if you reverse this image, it's almost a 1-to-1. So I'm going to reverse this image for you guys. And you can kind of see that the island is like quite literally 1-to-1 almost. Not exactly a full 1-to-1, but I believe that this is the Dragon Isles or this is the Broken Shore. And either way, it doesn't matter which one it is. It's just simply what it is. It's coming to the game at some point as well. I don't know how it's going to come to the game. I don't know what it's going to look like, but it is definitely coming to the game. But it's not something worth covering because that's something that I believe is going to be much later on. It's kind of like a big shock and awe video and teaser to make everybody go like, oh my god, let me dive in, let me jump in. This is going to be hype, this is going to be exciting, this is going to be interesting. For me personally, it's not the zone I'm most excited for or even care about that much. I'm more excited about things like Zuldar / Tolbarad and Crestfall or the Unfinished Islands. I feel like the game has a lot of empty ocean space that could definitely utilize islands and things in between. That would definitely make the world feel more alive. Zuldar, Crestfall, maybe even like a tease of Kultiris. Because as it stands right now, there's almost no islands of worth in Vanilla WoW's world, right? Like in Vanilla WoW's world, you have islands like, for example, Menethil, or I guess in this context, Theramore are technically islands. You have the Senjin Islands, you know, or the Troll Islands. You have a couple of isles over here off the coast of places. You have Feralis and its islands. You have a couple islands in Desolus. And I guess Tel'Abim is technically an island. But the most important island, like no one goes here to Fenrir Isle. Like literally no one. It's fucking like worthless. You go there, you do a quest, you finish it, you never go there again. And it's such an important place lore-wise and story-wise and world-building-wise that it's just kind of like fuck. Like the most popular island in the game, zero questions asked, is Scholomance Isle. It's probably the most visited place in the game from the perspective of being an island, because it's just that fucking like peak for the end game. A lot of people love to spam dungeons, and so as you can see, Scholomance. There it is. And if you look at the rest of this, technically I guess this island right here with the pirate stuff, a lot of people love leveling down here in this goddamn godforsaken PvP hellscape that is STV. But like not counting STV, it's Stranglethorn Vale, right? It's I did mention the Senjin Isle stream in Lemon. I did mention that. There needs to be more islands in Classic Plus, which down here, of course, I did cover Gilligam's Island, Isle of Lapidus, and I will come back to that once I go all the way around the coast. And then, of course, Gilneas, right? I just covered Gilneas. Grimbatol as well, I covered. I'm not going to necessarily cover that again. But going back to the islands, I do believe they could add an island every other phase, every couple phases. They could open up with Zuldar, and then 2 phases later, they can open up with Tolbarad, or add Tolbarad, and then a couple phases later, add Crestfall. And there's a lot of other unnamed islands or teaser places that they could drop or add to the game world that would make the game world feel alive and interesting and exciting. Nonetheless, Tirisfal Glades expanded, as you guys can see right here. This itself is really cool, but there's nothing really done there, and in retail it's mostly just there for like an artifact quest and a secret quest, so you unlock some secret stuff. It doesn't itself actually have a lot of value, but in Classic Plus they could add a town there. They could add a level 10 to 20 zone there, so as an undead you have even more options. They could make it a higher level zone. They could make it like a level 25 to 40 zone for the Horde. That'd be nice. But like at the end of the day, it genuinely is something that's very interesting. Because right here, if you zoom in, Death Knell is right here. It's this very tiny little zone over here. This itself is empty. It's a big stretch of land that is completely empty and doesn't actually have anything in it. And so from that perspective, there's so much that devs could do with it. Of course, we then have over here, moving on, we have Stratholm restored, and then you have the Ghost Lands, Revamp / Alvin Lands. I don't necessarily believe they're going to add a lot of this at launch. I think even if they add High Elves, it would be like a little settlement, kind of like what TWoW and the other private servers did. That would make it interesting or exciting for people, but I don't believe in the slightest fucking sense that they're going to be adding the full Ghost Lands or revamped Alvin Lands anytime soon in Classic Plus. I think at most we get like a semi-zone, like I said, over here in the north, or like a little bit of the Ghost Lands where you go in, but it's too plague corrupted to really cross yet, so you gotta wait some more, you gotta like wait for it to clear. It'll take a couple of phases, and then eventually like 3, 4, 5 years in, they'll open up the Ghost Lands. I do believe we'll probably get High Elves and Blood Elves in some format. The Horde needs a pretty race, and the Alliance needs High Elves regardless. So based off of that, I do think we'll be getting like a neutral type race. Same starting zones, and if you pick Horde, you become a Blood Elf. If you pick Alliance, you become a High Elf. And I think that's the direction they'll take with the Elves and how they're gonna introduce them to the game world. Anyways, then you have Avalon Scarlet Enclave, the sword version of things, just much better, much more improved, more time put on it. I think this will be in at launch or like the next phase. I don't think this is gonna be like a very long wait. I think even if they launch with Mount Hyjal, or they launch with Grimbatol, or they launch with Gilneas, or they launch with Uldum / Caverns of Time, I do believe it's going to be Scarlet Enclave available very, very soon. Because like the opening raid is Molten Core. I would bet my left fucking nutsack the opening raid is Molten Core. Like my left nutsack, I would say it's Molten Core. I could be wrong. It could be the second raid, but it's definitely going to have Molten Core added to the game. It's just simply put what it is. There's no way around that. They're going to rework Molten Core, a new wing, new bosses, new things, but it's coming. So yeah, that's Scarlet Enclave for you. New Avalon as a zone, Scarlet Enclave as a raid. It's gonna be there. It's just simply what it is. Now, I want to go further south to Jinthar Lore and Raventusk. Now, lore-wise, story-wise, you know, we kill the trolls in Jinthar Lore, we reclaim it for the Raventusk, it then becomes a Horde city, and even in retail, it is still not a Horde city. Even in retail, it is still the same old shit it's been for the past 2.5 decades almost. It's what it is. It sucks, but that's it. Jinthar Lore has not been expanded. In Classic Plus, it might. And I say that loosely. It might. Because I don't think they really like trolls at all. I think they fucking hate that trolls are the forebearers of the High Elves, or the elves in general. And I think the trolls are the punching bag for just World of Warcraft in general. I think the trolls, despite being the oldest like non-Titan race who have been here, who have been fighting, you know, the elementals and like the corruption of the old gods from even before the Titans got here. I think at the end of the day, the trolls are fucking hated. The lore keeps getting retconned. They keep getting molested and abused and destroyed by Blizzard. So as much as I want Raventusk and Jinthar Lore rework to happen and for it to be given some importance and some context and some credence, I believe Raventusk and Jinthar Lore are going to be mentioned and then fucking abandoned because it's not a pretty elf, it's not a Titan facility, and it's not a cool raid. At best, we get a fucking Raventusk raid or Jinthar Lore raid where the Alliance just murders them, and then the Horde gets to play from the Alliance perspective, and that's it. Like, they're not even gonna give us Jinthar Lore, they're gonna raise Raventusk Village with it. We are going to move further south to Gnomeregan Restored. At some point, Noma's gotta be restored, right? Even in retail, they've been saying that Noma might be restored. At some point, they gotta do it. At some point, they gotta give us this. They could expand the zone, give the gnomes their own little capital city, give the gnomes some expansion, connect it to the underground tram, let them have multiple avenues. Like, there's so many cool things they could do with it, but they're just genuinely not, and that's wild to me. The fact that it's literally an abandoned capital city for the past 2 decades is just diabolical. Noma should be restored, or it should just be fucking abandoned. If Noma's not getting restored, I want them to delete Gnomeregan as a raid. I don't want Noma to come back. Genuinely speaking, I want Noma to be deleted from the game. And I say that proudly, hand on my chest, I think it needs to be completely fucking gone. And because otherwise we're gonna get a level banded dungeon again, a level banded raid. And level banding is nice. It was fun and sod. But like with Class Plus being a forever game mode and not a temporary game mode, I think level banding is kind of pointless. But I wouldn't be surprised if they did level banding or they did phases like in that context. And I don't think they'll do phasing. Like we took Jinthar Lore, so now that you've seen the Jinthar Lore quest, Jinthar Lore is a city for you. I think phasing itself is genuinely not a classic experience or a classic expectation. And I think phasing breaks too much with the game in general. I think it just breaks way too many things in general. Now, the remaining things aren't as expansive or as amazing because I've already talked about them quite a few times in a few videos. The Stormwind Passage, I truly do believe that Stormwind is going to be, you know, connected. They're going to add something between that and from Stormwind itself connecting to Dun Morogh. So I think that's going to be added to the game and it's going to be very interesting overall. But I'm not super sure if that's how it's going to be or how it's going to go. But I do believe it's going to get added to the game overall, and it's going to make the game have that kind of connection there, because that zone is such an annoying eyesore that I truly do believe they need to expand the zone and truly make it be a part of the world and actually matter in a way that's just interesting. It's not going to be called Storm and Passage. I'm pretty sure they're going to rip like from TWoW or the other private servers, but I do believe it's coming. I don't know if it's going to be a copy of 1-to-1 of TWoW, but I do believe it is at some point going to be a very similar copy of what private servers have done there. Northshire Abbey and the continuation of that storyline and those story beats. I think it's going to be very important that the devs do finish that and give us something of quality and substance there. Now over here, I said Red Ridge expanded, but it's not quite Red Ridge expanded. And so now that we've got that covered, with Red Ridge itself, Red Ridge is over here, and Red Ridge has a lot of unconnected content, unfinished content here on the side of it. And it also connects to, in this context, you know, Swamp of Sorrows and to the coast of Zul'Gurub. This entire coastal side of the world map is gonna get quite heavily revamped. I truly do believe it. At launch is debatable. At launch is very, very, very questionable. But it will get revamped in a way that it requires or necessitates the world to feel more connected. Now, Red Ridge itself connects to Blackrock Mountain and then also has this passageway. In Cataclysm, it did this really weird shit that didn't really do anything. The Cataclysm change was effectively pointless as fuck. But in Classic Plus, I do believe they should add a road over here connecting up here to this new zone that'll be added over here. To the east of the Blasted Lands. Not the Blasted Lands. To the east of... yeah, the Blasted Lands. God, I'm forgetting the name of zones. I'm such a boomer. Anyways, getting added to the east over here. Because this is the Blasted Lands? Is that the Blasted Lands? This is the Blasted Land. What's this one called? This is the Blasted Lands. The Badlands. Badlands. There we go. Holy shit. The Badlands. But anyways. So the Badlands over here, right? So you have Red Ridge over here and the Badlands, all this stuff like over here on the eastern side of things. This whole plot will get redone completely. And in my opinion, when they do redo that stuff, from human settlements to troll remnants to Black Dragon and Orc conquest, there's so many storytelling beats that are absolutely and utterly insane that it just genuinely makes complete and utter sense for the devs to finish and utilize these locations. Same thing with the Twilight Highlands. It's not called the Twilight Highlands in Classic. It's not called that in Vanilla's time frame. It's just the Highlands, or you know, you can call it the Wildhammer Highlands. You can call it the Dwarven Highlands, or whatever you want to call it, you can call it that. So effectively, these three zones here, the Highlands, you know, well, Red Ridge expanded over here, the connection to the Swamp of Sorrows, as well as the coast of Zul'Gurub, all tying into each other, expanding the zone, expanding troll lore. The coast of Zul'Gurub would add like new troll settlements, new areas to kill trolls, new areas to just, you know, ruin troll society and make their lives worse. Temples to Hakar and stuff like that. And you know, more green dragon stuff, some red dragon stuff, especially up here would be red dragons with Grim Batol. You would have green dragon stuff here with Sunken Temple. You would have, you know, just the Emerald Nightmares trying to stop Hakar. You would also have Zandalar itself connected to all of this. When you add troll stuff, adding the Zandalari in the OG format would add a lot of flavor. God King Rastakhan dealing with the troll plague and the troll issue. Red Ridge itself would have some troll issues as well on the coast. And then of course, like I said, the Highlands themselves. Not necessarily trolls up here. This would be Dragonmoor and other orcish incursions. So there's a lot of really cool things that they could do overall that would make this experience of the east coast of the game a lot funner, a lot more interesting, and a lot more exciting overall. Now, in what phase will these things come? I could see them breaking it down into 3, 4, or 5 phases. I don't think necessarily that all of these are like in the context necessarily related to one another. I do, for example, see the Twilight Highlands being added to the map, just not accessible from launch. I could see them doing the coast of Zul'Gurub to add like a level 40 to 50 leveling zone, because you know, you finish leveling Stranglethorn Vale, you go through the coast, like you know, you've like level 38 to 43, and then Swamp of Sorrows, And then that way there's more avenues to access here to the Dark Portal area, to, you know, Netherguard Keep, adding a Orc City or a Horde City there in vanilla. There's a lot of cool things they could do, and I'm really, really excited to see what they plan on doing or plan on adding to the game. I'm truly, truly hyped to see what the world of vanilla looks like. And that is just all the major unfinished areas and content in vanilla. Wow, that's the major, the big ones. I skipped so many minor ones. I skipped so many things. I didn't even touch lore. I didn't even touch the story beats. I didn't even touch characters like Rexar and the Mok'Nathal. I didn't touch the story of the Black Dragons and the Onyxia questline and discussing the Defiers of Brotherhood and that story beat. I didn't talk about raids like Stormwind Vault and all these things, or Stormwind Harbor. I didn't talk about the unfinished races, the races that I wanted to add, like Ogres, Naga, Goblins, Worgen, High Elves, Blood Elves. I didn't talk about all the potential other things in the story beats, like the remnants of the Scourge and the power the Scourge still wields in the world and how terrifying it is. The Illidari and their missions and their motives. I didn't talk about the class balancing. I didn't talk about the faction balancing, the racials. I didn't talk about 97% of unfinished content. All I've talked about in this really shit video is the unfinished major plot points and zone and locations that need to be added to the game and expanded upon. And being realistic, if Blizzard did this shit slowly, and I mean that when I say that, if Blizzard did this shit slowly, this would probably take 6, 7, 8 years to finish. Probably 7 to 8 years to finish. And in my opinion, in the first year, 4 new zones, 10 new dungeons, and 3 brand new raid tiers in the first year. Every year after that, I think there'll be 1 to 2 new zones every year, and 2 to 3 new raids, like 10-man raids and 20-man raids, and 3 to 5 new dungeons every year or 2. I do think it's going to be like a vanilla cycle, expansions, box price, heroic edition, epic edition. It's what it is, but I do believe that the world of vanilla is so chock-packed full of content that Retail WoW still hasn't finished it 20 years later. If Retail WoW hasn't finished, and we're doing an alternate timeline in Classic WoW, what makes you think the Classic Plus devs aren't going to take 10 plus years to even get through half of this content? Anyways, thank you all for watching. If you liked this video, like, subscribe. If you hated it, dislike and subscribe. I don't give a shit. Hate on me, but hate on me creatively. Thank you all for watching. Ebonheart out. Peace.